It's the second Summerhill GCSE Media Studies podcast. In this episode, we will be exploring the media concept of representation. Representation is the way in which people, places, issues, and events are portrayed in the media. Media producers construct representations of these things using media language. The media do not simply present a picture of the real world, they represent versions of reality by selecting and combining different elements of media language. This process is called mediation. Representations are constructed by media producers for a particular purpose, and they communicate messages and points of view about the world. Media producers have considerable power, as their representations are consumed by audiences who could be influenced by them. When you analyse representations, it is important to be aware of the choices made by producers, so you should always consider the following. What is the purpose of the product? This can affect the way representations are constructed. A cosmetics advert might construct an image of a perfect woman as the purpose to sell the product. Secondly, what elements have been selected and what has been left out? Media producers make decisions about how to construct representations. They choose what to include and exclude in the product. This means that certain groups might be excluded. And next, whose point of view is taken? This is important as it positions the audience. We might be shown the point of view of a particular character in a narrative, while news stories might take a particular viewpoint. And what messages do these representations communicate? An important issue to consider when looking at representation is the use of stereotypes. A stereotype is an oversimplified image of a particular type of person or social group. Stereotypes categorize groups of people by a narrow range of superficial and often negative attributes. They can become fixed when we recognize and identify a group of people by these traits. While there might be some truth at the heart of a stereotype, it is limiting and potentially damaging to assume that every person in a particular group is the same. Typically, the groups of people who are stereotyped are in the minority and have limited power in society. The stereotypes are a useful tool for media producers, as they can communicate a lot of information very quickly and give an audience a recognizable type of individual or social group. Stereotypes can change over time. Gender stereotypes, for example, have developed as male and female roles have changed in society. It is important to consider to what extent media products uphold or subvert stereotypes. When studying representation, it is also useful to look at the representation of gender. Gender relates to the attributes and behaviour that we associate with being male and female. In media studies, we analyse the ways in which producers construct representations of masculinity and femininity in media products. Men have, traditionally, had more power than women in society, and this has been reflected in the media. You will see some clear evidence of this in the historical products that you study. While there are clear biological differences between the sexes, many gender differences are cultural. Men have tended to go out to work, for example, while women have had a more domestic role. There are many attributes associated with masculinity and femininity, and many of these reflect the fact that men have, historically, been more dominant in society. Men are frequently shown to be tough and strong, and also rational and unemotional. In contrast, women tend to be represented as being weaker and more emotional. Ideas of physical attractiveness in males are often linked to physical strength and muscularity. Attractiveness in females is typically associated with beauty and a slender body image. Women are stereotypically represented as homemakers and mother figures, whereas men tend to leave the home to go to manual or professional jobs. Linked to this idea, women are typically shown as being dependent on other people, typically a man. Men are often represented as being more independent and less reliant on others. There are also many stereotypical interests associated with each gender. For example, men enjoy cars, sport and rock music, and women are interested in fashion, beauty, and romantic comedies. Let's look now at the representation of ethnicity. The media play an important role in constructing and communicating representations of ethnicity. Ethnicity relates to a person's national, cultural, or religious identity. People from many different ethnic backgrounds live in contemporary Britain. It is a multicultural society. Historically, however, Britain was less diverse, and people from minority ethnic groups have tended to be, and still are, underrepresented in the mainstream media. There are also many examples of misrepresentation and stereotyping of ethnic minorities. Stuart Hall argued that representations often focus on otherness, for example, emphasising difference or foreignness, such as exotic people from a different culture, threatening or dangerous people, or victims, as in adverts for charities working in developing countries. You will see positive changes over time when you compare historical products with contemporary ones. That wraps up our podcast on representation. Thanks for listening.